Hi guys, so I'm going to walk you through some notes on Objective 8 that you can copy and follow along with me on. I'm going to start by writing what Objective 8 is at the top for the title of these notes. Objective 8 is explain the relationship between the four major macromolecules and explain how each gets from our plate into our cells. So that is our goal in this unit. Explain the relationship between the four major macromolecules and explain how each gets from our plate into our cells. So we are going to kind of do a drawing-ish thing here. I want you to think of your paper as being divided into four little squares. I'm pretty zoomed in. I'm just going to work in the top little square right here. So like this top little box. I'm keeping it half the page, okay? And we're going to do a little drawing in this area. So top corner, if you divided your paper into four. And so we're going to do our best to draw a picture. I'm going to zoom way in. Remember, this is in the top corner. And here's our picture. We're going to start by drawing the head of a person. That's their nose. So you're probably more artistic than I am already. Okay, so nose and mouth and their neck. This is where I want you to make it a little bigger than a normal person. We're going to go outward to the arms. And they have a nice wide chest for us to draw quite a bit in. It's going to extend down a bit. There we go. Okay, so that's our person. Again, it's in the top right corner of our paper. There's still a lot of other space left. And we're going to start by drawing a path from the mouth. We're going to create the inside. We're going to show the insides of the body. So inside, we would see the pharynx, which is the throat, and we're gonna go down really far. This long tube called the esophagus. And it goes past behind the heart and your lungs, so it's going way down. And once we're down there to the bottom of our ribs, we're going to start drawing some organs of the digestive system, because if we're trying to get macromolecules from our plate into our own cells, the digestive system is going to be our guy. So we're going to start by drawing the liver right here. The liver is this really big, it's kind of like a triangle-ish shaped organ. Okay, so there's our liver. And then behind it, the stomach is kind of sitting here. So we'll draw the stomach. We will add in a little thing sticking out here because there is the pancreas hiding behind the stomach, and we have a gallbladder right here as well. Okay. From the stomach, food goes into the small intestine, so we're going to draw that. But in between here, kind of covering that up when we're looking at it, is the large intestine. So we're going to draw this pretty thick loop. Like that. Oops, there we go. And we're going to fill in this space here with the small intestine. Small intestine is actually longer than the large intestine, which we would have seen if we did our rat dissections, but the reason it's called the small intestine is because it's a lot thinner than that large intestine. So it kind of snakes on through here in all different directions. Loops back around. It's pretty organized, but we'll see these little waves in here. Okay, so somehow I just kind of show that it's waving all the way through here as the small intestine, looping back and forth and so on and so forth. There is our drawing. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use some colors just to show different parts. I'm going to start by labeling all of the structures that we can see here. So I'm going to go down below my guy, and I'm going to write, we'll go over here. To the far left, I'm going to write the word structure. Structures. Okay, we're going to look at the structures of the digestive system, the organs that are found there. So we're going to start off with the mouth. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to label this with an A. You can come, actually we'll just stay like that. So that's the mouth. Then we're going to go to here, and we're going to label this letter B. This is the pharynx. So we'll write all these below in a little bit. Letter C is going to be the esophagus here, this long tube. Letter D, we are going to go on to the stomach. So look for this guy right here. E, we're going to label the small intestine as E. The large intestine as F. The rectum as G. And the anus as H. Then we're going to go back up. We're going to label the liver as I. And the gallbladder as J. And the pancreas as K. Okay. So there we have our labels. We'll zoom out in case you need it. So next, we're going to go down below. We're going to set up our chart. So we have structures written. So we're going to write the structures over here. And then we're going to break this part up into 3 sections. So these are all going to be the functions, which actually I should use a different color for so we can clearly see that. Use pink. And we have 3 different types of functions. For these structures, many of them perform what's called mechanical digestion. In other words, they physically break down foods with their movements. Okay. The next column is going to be titled chemical digestion. Many of these organs also perform chemical digestion. They're going to use what's called enzymes, those proteins that speed up reactions to actually break apart the molecules in our foods. So here we're just kind of breaking, like if you think about a piece of bread, you can break it with your hands. That's kind of what mechanical digestion is like. But here it's chemical digestion, like actually changing the chemical form of it, really fully breaking apart those molecules even further at the molecular level. And then our last column is going to be titled Other. Some of these actually don't do any digestion at all. They just help pass things along when we're done with digestion, or they help with absorbing those nutrients we've been working to digest. So what I want you to do now is go back over to the structures column. We're going to look at the mouth first up here, letter A. We can label that here, A, mouth. Your mouth chews. That's the mechanical digestion, right? Your teeth are there and it chews and breaks apart that food mechanically. It also breaks apart your food chemically. We have some enzymes in our saliva that break down carbohydrates. So I'm just going to write that there, carbohydrates, showing that carbohydrates are broken down by enzymes here. We're next going to go on to letter B. Letter B is the pharynx. It's like your throat. And the pharynx doesn't really have any functions in digestion. It's more so just a passageway. Letter C, we have the esophagus. The esophagus performs mechanical digestion in a form called peristalsis. Peristalsis. This is like when muscles can do this like wave, way too zoomed in. This like wave-like motions. They're just kind of like pushing it on down by just kind of creating this roller coaster for the food, pushing it all down so nothing gets stuck. Really no major functions here, and it's also just basically a passageway for this food. We're trying to bypass all those respiratory organs and get down to those digestive ones. Next, we have the stomach, letter D. Here, we have churning. The stomach has 3 different types of muscles that all pull in different directions. So you just want to think of it like a big, like everything's just getting squished around. That's what churning is, kind of getting squished around. We also have gastric juices here that are going to help start to break down proteins that we eat. Okay, and that's it. Next, we have letter E, the small intestine. The small intestine. Okay, so food goes from the stomach to the small intestine. And the small intestine also performs peristalsis. That wave-like motion that the esophagus performed, kind of pushing the food on through with its muscles. And a lot of digestion happens here. We have enzymes here that can break down all macromolecules. Proteins, lipids, carbohydrates, and nucleic acids can all be broken down in the small intestine. Another function of the small intestine that's really important, so I'm going to star it, is this is where absorption of all those monomers happens. All the stuff we've been breaking down, this is where they're all absorbed. So I'm going to write absorbs monomers through villi and into the blood. So we're taking these little monomers, amino acids, glycerol and fatty acids, monosaccharides, and nucleotides, and they're coming into these little projections in the small intestine called villi that increase the surface area. And all of them are going to hop into the blood, our transportation system. Now that they're nice and small and can move through the walls of the small intestine and into the blood. So now all those nutrients are gone. They're absorbed into our blood, but we still have some other stuff left that we have to get rid of or maybe absorb a little more. So we're going to go on to F, the large intestine, which also performs peristalsis. Sort of. It's actually a little bit different, but we're going to go with that for now. It's called mass movements, like these big waves, kind of like peristalsis. No digestion. All the digestion is done at this point. But the large intestine absorbs water and electrolytes. So that's important. Just do a little dash so we can see it's a separate one. And we will now move on to the rectum, letter G. And the anus, letter H. Again, they're not going to have any really digestive function. All the digestion is done, but the rectum holds the feces. All the waste that's about to come out. Things that the small intestine didn't want to absorb. And the anus is going to release the feces. it opens up to release the feces into the toilet, hopefully. Okay, lastly, we have I, J, and K. So notice I kind of skipped over these at first. The reason why is because food does not pass through these organs, but they do help with digestion. They work closely with the small intestine. They send the small intestine stuff to help the small intestine break down all the macromolecules. I is the liver. Okay. So we are going to, again, go right on over to other. The liver, because there's no digestion happening here, it's just helping, is going to make bile, which breaks down lipids, and send it to the small intestine. So it releases bile into the small intestine. So it can help that small intestine break down all the macromolecules that come there. It also has a little piece connected to it, kind of hanging off of it, which you might have heard of before. It's called, letter J, the gallbladder. Gotta skip a line. Oops. Okay, and the gallbladder, it stores bile, or I should say stores extra bile. So when the liver is making too much, we have a little storage place for our bile until it needs to be used. So we're always ready to add some bile into the small intestine when we're eating really fatty foods. These are going to release bile and help break it down. And lastly, we have letter K. Letter K, smaller than the liver, but mighty. Letter K is the pancreas. Okay. The pancreas. It can make enzymes that digest each and every one, all of the macromolecules. Okay. And send these enzymes to the small intestine. So it's going to help that small intestine break down all those macromolecules. It makes tons of different types of enzymes that will send along when it gets a signal that food is there in the small intestine and it needs to be broken down. Okay, so those are our digestive system organs, their functions in terms of digestion. So we're going to go back up to the top. And our last thing to do is take green or just some other color. And we are going to write the pathway for digestion, and then we will also write a synthesis pathway. So I'm going to just do this on two little columns here. We have the digestion pathway, and we'll do a different color, synthesis, which means building. Okay. So here's our digestion pathway. We go from the mouth, letter A, to the pharynx, letter B, pharynx. Letter B to the esophagus. Letter C to the stomach. Letter D to the small intestine. Letter E to the large intestine. Letter F to the rectum. Letter I to the anus. Oh, nope. Sorry, to the large intestine, letter F. G. F, G, I skipped. To the rectum, letter G, into the anus. Letter H. I guess I need to work on my alphabet. Okay, so that's the pathway that food moves through for digestion, okay? Again, the liver and the pancreas and the gallbladder, no food goes through there. They just help with making the stuff to break down the food. They send it to the small intestine, okay? Next, we have synthesis. So once we get these nutrients absorbed from the small intestine, they're going to hop on into the blood. just list these. Then they're going to go to the liver. The liver is really good at filtering out different things and sending them to where they need to go. From the liver, they're going to go back into the blood in different pathways to different areas of the body. For example, we could have glucose, or we could say monosaccharides, go a couple of places. Those monosaccharides could get stored in the liver as glycogen. Oops, I ran out of space. Stored in the liver as glycogen. They could go to any body cells to be used as energy. And there's other things as well, but we'll stick with that for now. We can next go on to glycerol and fatty acids that have been absorbed. Okay, these can be, let's say one place it could go is it could go to the skin to be used for insulation. These are lipids, right? The building blocks of lipids. We have letter C, I'm probably going to run out of room, which is amino acids. The building blocks of proteins. So one place they could go to muscles. And we have letter D, which is nucleic acid, or nucleotides. The building blocks of nucleic acids. They could go be used to make new cells. They'll bring some building blocks to make DNA for new cells. Okay, maybe that's in the skin, because we lose skin cells all the time. Maybe it's in the stomach. Could be anywhere. Maybe you're growing. That's why you need new cells. Lots of different reasons. And that is it. Digestion and synthesis, from our plate to our body cells.